Okay, so I got something today that's special, and I'm going to share with you, and I'm really excited about this. And this is Mego Corporation's 8-inch Batman action figure. It says World's Greatest Mego Heroes. 8-inch action figure, 14 points of articulation. Marty Abrams presents Mego. I think this is the first Mego that I've done on my channel, and it's kind of funny because I love Mego figures. You would think I would have done one already, but I haven't that I know of that I can remember. But I'm happy that my first Mego review for this channel is going to be Batman because, as you may know, if you've been watching these videos for a while, I've probably mentioned it, especially in videos that I've done talking about Batman action figures. Batman is my favorite character, so I'm really excited to be opening this up. It's got a picture of Batman on the back here. It's kind of funny because it's not the costume that Batman is wearing here. Because if you'll notice, Batman in the figure is wearing trunks like classic Batman, and Batman on the back is the Rebirth costume, which does not have trunks. And honestly, I like the Rebirth costume. I wouldn't have minded if they had to use the Rebirth costume as the basis for this figure, but they did not. This is more of just kind of a general modern style Batman figure. It could be one from like 2000, or I think he wears a costume similar to this in the comics right now. I think he's gone back to wearing the trunks. It could be, and what I most associate the black and gray pouch belt looking Batman with is Batman Year One. So to me, I look at this and I see Batman Year One because that's one of my favorite Batman comic book stories. But it's also similar to the costume that he wore in such stories as Long Halloween and most of your stories that you would have had in the series Legends of the Dark Knight. So this is a good classic Batman costume. Now, of course, my favorite look for Batman is the blue and gray one. You can see the McFarlane figure over there on my shelf. It's the only McFarlane figure that I have, and it's because I just can't resist a good blue and gray Batman. So while I do love this figure, just looking at it in the package, I can tell that it's a good looking figure. Uh, I would really like to have a blue and gray version at some point in the future. Hopefully, with the oval around the emblem, Neil Adams style. That would be fantastic. Like I said, happy with this one, not complaining, but a blue and gray one would be so awesome. But anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. And actually, mine isn't completely glued to the package here, so it is very easy to open. This is a nice, sturdy card. And the glue is actually pretty strong. I don't think the whole thing would fall off, but there's a few spots where the glue just, I guess, didn't quite meet the cardboard. So that makes it a little easier for me to open it. So I do think it's funny, again, that they have the wrong costume of the figure. Like, you can see the differences. Like, I really like on the Rebirth costume how they have that sort of gold border around the bat. Helps it pop a little bit more. And I'm not knocking on Mego for this, because it's actually not their fault. DC has gotten, like, really micromanagey about how they do packages for action figures and stuff. That's why everything has this same sort of, I don't know, trade dress, I guess you'd call it. And I kind of wish they would give Mego a little more leeway to make something a little closer to the classic Mego packaging. Like, there's a lot of empty space here, a lot of real estate that's not being utilized. And I figure this thing could probably convey just as much information if you shrunk it down a little bit. And, you know, the emblem could convey better information if you shrunk it down a little bit. You can see how part of the emblem was underneath the bubble. And I think if you shrunk that stuff down, it would give you enough space that you could do the old bubbles of characters like you had typically on Mego cards and show off some of the other characters in the line there. Like, I believe in this assortment, it was Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. So you could have the bubbles with the pictures of, portraits of the characters on there, and that would be nice. And also, DC, if anybody from DC is listening, I think it would be better if the characters' illustrations on the packages meshed up with what the figure looks like. Like, for example, I had the 14-inch Mego Superman figure, and it's a great figure, but the packaging of it, even though it's a classic Superman in the packaging, has the New 52 Superman on there. I can't stand New 52 Superman. That's such an awful costume. I would have much rather had classic Superman on the packaging. But then when they actually did a New 52 14-inch Superman figure, which I did not buy because, again, like I said, don't like New 52 Superman, that one did not have New 52 Superman on the packaging. It had Rebirth Superman on the packaging. So then I was really hoping that they would do a Rebirth 14-inch Superman so that I could have one with classic Superman on the box. But instead they did another classic Superman, and I haven't gotten a good look at that one yet, but I imagine that one probably has classic Superman on the box. Anyway, why is he talking about Superman in a Batman review? Let's go ahead and open this up. So, we got Batman here, and no rubber bands, no twist ties. You see how easily he just came right out into my hand? Wonderful. Wonderful. But we're going to set him down for just a minute, because we do have one accessory that's in here, and that's a Batarang. We can see that that's taped in there, and hopefully I can just pull it out without fooling with the tape. Yeah, the tape just came right off when I pulled on it, so that's good. And then we have his Batarang. We'll see how well he holds on to that. We'll set that aside for now. Now let's just have a look at the figure. And he is a nice looking figure. One thing I will say at the outset, and this is just a minor complaint, is I feel like his head is a little bit too large. But that's something that kind of typically happens with Mego figures. I think it's less noticeable on, like, you know, some of the live action characters that they have, because you want to have like a good portrait. Like, for example, I think Captain Kirk's head isn't much larger or smaller than this head. It's about the same size, but it seems more well proportioned on Captain Kirk, I think, because it's an actor's likeness, whereas this is just kind of a sculpture of Batman as he looks in the comics. And it doesn't look to me like it was based on any one particular version of Batman. It looks like it's just kind of a general comic book version of Batman again. And the face is very detailed. There's lots of furrows to the brow and lots of details sculpted into the chin. I think it might be a little washed out on there because of the light from the ceiling and the light from the monitor. But it does kind of, to me, have like a slight Brian Bolland kind of look to the way that the chin is sculpted. But the ears are definitely not Brian Bolland style ears, because they're way shorter than how he draws Batman's ears. And they're also, you can see, kind of pointed inward, whereas Brian Bolland's are more sort of like straight up and down. But it's a good Batman head sculpt, I think. He looks like, you know, it's a neutral expression, but it's still one of, like, sort of grim determination. So since this is a modern Mego figure, you can see that he does not have the oven mitts that are infamous on the old Megos. They actually molded his hands in black plastic. And yeah, the joints are still a little tight because he's brand new, but they do move. And his hands feel a little bit more stiff than what I'm used to these newer Megos. Like, I'm used to the hands on those being a little more sort of rubbery. And these seem a little more stiff. These seem more like the old Megos and how his hands are done. In fact, I wonder if they've changed the type of plastic that's used on the bodies versus the old ones. Let's see if I can get his cape off, because I don't want it to get snagged on this Velcro. His cape does kind of fit tightly around the head, but it does come off. And you can see that Batman's belt fastens in the back, just like the old style Mego, with the tab and the little slot. So you kind of twist the tab a little bit to get it off. And you can remove Batman's utility belt. Let's have a closer look at Batman's utility belt while I've got it off. And it's very nicely sculpted. It's got cartridges, little tabs on them. Every little tab is sculpted in. There's like kind of a texture to it almost like they were trying to give it sort of a canvas sort of feel. I like that. Okay. And you can see that, unlike the old Megos, where the trunks were like a separate piece of fabric that was sewn in, this is all one piece. The trunks and the glove cuffs and the emblems, those are all printed on. So unlike the old Mego figures where it was a sticker that, was so delicately placed onto the figure that sometimes they would even fall off in the package, this Batman emblem is never going to fall off because it's printed straight on there. It's not even like an iron-on decal like the 14-inch figures had, or at least the 14-inch figures that they sold at Target. I don't know about the newer ones. They might be screen printed like this. But let's go ahead and open up the back of his suit, and we can see that Batman has a solid black body. And it does seem to me like this plastic is a little more sturdy, I guess you'd say. It's a little bit stiffer than the bodies they were using previously. And if we look at the way the joint is here, you can see that it's not quite pulling on them quite as hard. That's probably why they switched to this newer, stiffer plastic, because it probably is more resistant to that joint. So I don't think this is the new Mego body, because I think that's supposed to premiere on the new Snake Eyes figures, the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, that I've already pre-ordered from Hasbro Pulse, so I will have those on the way. But it's the typical classic Mego body, but it's done in like a different style of plastic. And I think that'll help with the articulation a little bit too. So, but that's really cool. Let's go ahead and take off his boots, because I want to have a closer look at his boots. And these boots are made out of a rubbery material. This is not the type of plastic that the original Mego boots were made out of, nor Dr. Mego's reproductions, if you've had those online. It's not those either. And it's also not like the Mattel retro action figures, where it was that really thick sort of rubber boot. This is a much thinner boot. I'd say it's probably about the thickness of the plastic that Dr. Mego has on his boots that he sells on the website, but it's not that type of what I call waxy plastic. I think it's nylon, but it's more of like a rubbery, like a vinyl kind of plastic. So you won't have to worry about these cracking, probably. They'll be pretty sturdy. If you look at the soles, there's not even like the seam across the middle. So, but I can feel the seam here, but I'm guessing the seam goes down around one of the edges of these boots. In fact, I feel a little bit of it here. And it looks like to me, they are both the same boot. So it's two of the same boot. And I guess if I check his whole, I kind of don't want to take the whole costume off, but I want to see if the legs are black. So, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it down enough. It looks like at least the upper thigh is black. I don't know about the lower part, but I don't want to pull the whole costume off because I don't want to risk, tearing it or putting a run in it or anything like that. Let's go ahead and put his boot back on, and then put the utility belt back around his waist. Make sure I've got the pockets facing the right way, because we don't want all this stuff to fall out of his utility belt. Make sure I get that buckled back. So yeah, while it's not like a particular comic book artist's head, it's not like necessarily like a Frank Miller Batman head, or a Neil Adams Batman head, or Greg Capullo for you young kids out there in the audience. It is a good, solid comic book style Batman head. Let's go ahead and put the cape back onto him. And then we can talk a little bit more about the overall look of the figure, because I don't want to avoid that. So he does have the articulation that's fairly typical of Megos. Like I showed you how the arm was hooked in here, and that gives it kind of a ball joint feel. You got a joint here at the elbow. Unfortunately, there's no kind of bicep swivel, but that's something that they'll have in the new Megos coming forward, from the G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow going forward. He's got wrists that pivot this way and that, turn all the way around 360 degrees. Got a nice ball joint in the middle, ball joints at the hips. joint here that goes back and forth. No mid-thigh swivel or, swivel here. He does have ankle articulation, but since he's wearing the boots, you can't really get to it. But, if you were to take off the boots, you can move his ankles around. And the cape can fold nicely over his shoulders, which I always like to have in a Batman figure, where like the cape kind of drapes over his shoulders like that. Or you can fold it backwards that way for action. So this would be more like when he's in a fight and the cape's kind of thrown back over his shoulders, but then, he can be standing on a rooftop and have the cape kind of wrapped around it. It doesn't go all the way around him because it's not quite long enough to go all the way around him. Maybe if you pulled it together, you could kind of hold it together, but it's not going to stay that way. I think that's about as far around as I could get. That one to me looks a lot like the really early comic books, the Bob Kane Batman comic books, that were really drawn by guys like Sheldon Moldoff, tripping over his name there, and Jerry Robinson, and Kane really didn't have much at all to do with him. And my favorite Golden Age artist is Dick Sprang, whose name is a sentence and kind of a dirty one. His wrist cuffs, like I said, those are printed straight onto the costume, but the famous Batman fins, those are like kind of a material that's sewn in there. This seems almost kind of like a pleather kind of material. It's got like a texture to it. Like on one side it feels more sort of like leathery, but on the other side it's got like this sort of almost like a grid mark kind of texture. I don't know if you can quite see it. It's pretty cool though. It feels like it'd be pretty sturdy. You probably won't have to worry about this breaking off or anything. So, and let's see how well Batman holds his Batarang. I'm guessing he's probably going to hold it pretty well since these hands are such a firm plastic. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's see if we can get him in a good Batarang throwing pose. I'm really glad they got the new plastic on the arms, so I won't have to worry about him pulling too much. But yeah, that's a nice pose, like he's about to throw his Batarang. So that might be a good pose to leave him in on the shelf. Or, if you don't feel like having him hold the Batarang, what you could also do... Oh, and when you do stuff like that, make sure you get the arms back into the arm sockets, because sometimes they pull kind of loose from the arm sockets. And make sure when you do that, you don't let it snag on the costume, because that could create runs in the costume. Alright, so if you don't want to have him holding his Batarang all the time, you can probably, I'm assuming, let's see how well this works. I'm hoping this will work. Yeah, you can tuck the Batarang right into the back of his belt, and he can hold it in the back of his belt. The belt's just tight enough that it should hold it on there pretty well, I think. So, I might pull it around a little bit more to the side, just to make sure that like it's at the optimal sort of tension. There's like that little bit of space at the back, you can see where the belt kind of comes to a point. But if we slide it around this way, then we make sure we've got it firmly between the belt and the side of his hip. So that's a good place to leave it. Now, that having been said, you can see that the Batarang is kind of bowing just a little bit if I do that. So what you might want to do if you do that is every once in a while, flip the Batarang around so it doesn't get permanently warped. But yeah, this is a really cool figure, and I'm really glad to finally have it in my collection. Now that I do, I need to get the rest of the figures. So I'm probably going to try to get Superman and Wonder Woman soon. And then, of course, they've got more Batman characters coming out, because I know already they have out the Riddler, and Flash and Green Lantern are two other superhero characters. And then Robin, Joker, and Penguin are all coming out, and those look sweet. I think Robin, actually, to me, looks like the best one, because I was kind of surprised, especially because, like, this is a more... Like I said, I feel like this is a more modern-style Batman. This is one I associate with, Batman Year One, Legends of the Dark Knight, and, comics from around, like, 2000 or so. It's pretty similar to the costume he wore in Justice League Unlimited. And the later seasons of Batman the Animated Series, the New Batman Adventures. Uh, but when they did Robin, they went totally old school with Robin. And I would have expected they would have done like the 90s Tim Drake sort of suit, because that's generally the most popular Robin costume among fans. But instead, they went all the way back to the Dick Grayson Robin. And not only did they do a Dick Grayson Robin in the full Golden Age style classic Robin suit, but the head sculpt, it's a really nice head sculpt. And to me, it looks exactly like how George Perez drew Robin in New Teen Titans. So I definitely want to have that, because I'm a big fan of the old New Teen Titan. That was awkward, but I'm a big fan of like the Bronze Age Teen Titans book that Perez did with Marv Wolfman as the writer, and that was a good series. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, since it looks like the George Perez Robin, I figure it'd probably be good to make a custom of Nightwing out of it, since he's the guy who designed the original Nightwing suit. I know Figures Toy Company has a Nightwing already, but it might be worth it for me just to, put the suit for that one onto the Mego Robin and to just kind of repaint the mask so it looks more like Nightwing's mask. But anyway, Batman is definitely a recommend. The only thing I can think of that might be a negative on him is I think his cape is just slightly too short. You can see how his cape comes down to like the top of the boots. And I think that's a perfect length for Superman, but Batman I like to have like a little bit more of a swooping cape. So I think maybe they could have added like another inch or so to the length of his cape. But even then, it's not really a deal breaker, and I still think it looks really cool. And I'm going to be happy to have this guy on my shelf. Uh, I do have several Mego style Batmans. I have the vintage Mego Batman still, and I have the Figures Toy Company reproduction of Batman where he has a removable cowl, and I have various custom Mego Batmans that I've made, and of course I also have the Adam West Batman Mego figure. Well, maybe I'll do a video on that sometime, because I really like that one. But it's definitely worth having this one, and honestly, I'm just happy to have Mego making 8-inch superhero figures again. I'm about at the age where, to me, Mego superhero figures would have been the first action figures that I ever owned. Like, even before I had any Star Wars action figures, I had 8-inch Mego superhero figures, and one of the few figures that I have remaining from my childhood is my original Mego Spider-Man. So I have a lot of strong attachment to Mego as a brand and the Mego style of 8-inch action figures, and making one of my favorite character, Batman, just makes it that much more of an awesome figure. So I'd seen the pics of it online, and I was pretty impressed with it, and I knew I had to have one, and once I had one in my hands, I knew I made the right decision. This is a great figure. So anyway, what do you think of Mego's Batman? Uh, Let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you think of this figure. Do you have this figure? Do you intend on getting this figure? How do you think it measures up to the original Mego Batman? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? Are there any improvements that you could think of to do with this? Are there any variants would you like to see? Like maybe a blue and gray Batman like I want to see? Or, maybe one of the crazier, kookier variants. Maybe they could make Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, or like Rainbow Batman, or something like that. That might be fun. Zebra Batman, So, but let me know in the comments below. Also, that reminds me, one of the I'd seen like a picture of they're working on it. They're going to do a Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. So that opens up the possibility of them doing other live action characters too, doesn't it? So we might actually get like a Amigo style Michael Keaton Batman, or a Ben Affleck, which I think would actually work really well in this style. Like you could print all the textures and everything on the suit. That would look really cool. I already have the Adam West one that Figures Toy Company did, but if Mego themselves were to take a whack at doing an Adam West Batman, I would certainly buy it. I love Adam West Batman. But anyway, let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Mego Batman in general, and specifically this figure. and do all the YouTube stuff that's fun to do, like liking and subscribing and leaving comments. Just do all that stuff while you're down there. And or hell, if you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down and tell me how much it sucked and things that you think I could do better. So, all right, thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye.